and welcome to the BullCast podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me, sitting directly next to me, is Court Winsett.
That's because Cameron is not sitting next to you.
I know, this is just weird. I'm used to staring into Court's soul as we do this podcast, and instead I'm now having to side-eye him, and he could be making faces at the other guest on today's show, Nicole Ellis.
Hey guys, you got the other Brandon girl with you today.
Yeah, so Cam, we miss you, but this episode is right up Nicole's alley because she may know a little bit about this.
She may be experiencing.
Yeah.
Or I don't know anything about this, and I need you to tell me.
Okay, well, either way.
So this is going to be the secrets of smart apartment hunting, because obviously we've talked before in depth about all the ins and outs of purchasing a home, deciding about renting or buying, and looking at all the different financing and home equity lines of credit and all the different options that go with a home. But sometimes that's not the best option. Sometimes, you just want an apartment because you're testing out the area. Maybe it's a temporary location job, or maybe it's a job that's moved you to an area and you're not sure you're going to settle down roots there and you want to figure out where in the city you want to be. So this is going to be about smart apartment hunting. As always, we've got our fun list of songs about paying rent and financial hardships. It's a hard knock life. Oh, yeah, that is on here, actually. Oops, sorry.
Go ahead and take the first one.
Well, so it's a hard not life from the musical Annie. When you say financial hardships, that's immediately what comes into my head. Didn't a rapper kind of remix this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like we discussed this recently, but I can't remember who it was.
That's one of the ones on this list. Court?
You change up which direction we're going around the table, and it throws me
on
off.
your toes.
Okay, so next on the list is, Nicole, I'm going to let you do that one. I'm going to do this one. The next on the list is Money, Money, Money by ABBA.
Is it funny in a rich man's world?
So I was a part of a competition dance team, and we did one of our seasons. We did Money, Money, and it was epic because we went to the thrift store to get the costumes and put it together. And so mine was a little maid outfit, and we had just different varieties. Because in that scene of ABBA and Mamma Mia and stuff like that, it's kind of housekeepers type things. And I just remember in that dance, we ended up throwing one of the dancers in a trash can at the end. It was
nice.
It was so much fun. But yeah.
Well, technically, we all have musicals to start.
Okay.
The classic Rent from the musical Rent.
Oh yeah, that would make
May have
sense.
seen it a few times and
Just
cried.
a few.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one.
Okay, then we've got Fast Car, Tracy Chapman. This has obviously been revitalized recently with Grammys. And so been around a long time, great song. It's always fun for award shows or movies to revitalize songs that have been around for a long time. So this is one of them.
Next on the list is Dear Landlord by Bob Dylan. I got nothing.
I've
Not
never
familiar
heard
with
this
the
song
song
either.
Yeah,
but
I know Bob Dylan well, but I don't know this one.
it mentioned a landlord, so
Yeah.
sounds relatable. Next on the list is Mockingbird by Eminem. This is a classic song. You guys never heard this song?
No, I mean, I love
I
Eminem.
probably
I'm trying to place it in my head right now.
Guys, I'm terrible with song lyrics and song titles. I very rarely pay attention to the title of a song. I'm a huge Eminem fan, but
Yeah, me
I could
too.
probably list on one hand the number of his song titles that I actually know.
But if you started singing it, I probably would know it. Okay, so can you spare a dime? Bing Crosby?
Indeed. Okay, I'm skipping to this one because I know this one. Another Day in Paradise by Phil Collins.
Mr. Tarzan.
Yes. Well, that's not how I know
I would
him.
say
but
Phil is so much more than Tarzan.
I know, but I grew up on Tarzan, so. Next on the list is a classic, Mo Money, Mo Problems.
Notorious B.I.G. Woohoo! Okay, and the last one on our list, Do They Know It's Christmas by Band-Aid.
That's obviously a financial hardship song. Feed the world,
I
let
love
them know
this
it's
song.
Christmas. I have many, many strong opinions about this song. But anyway, it is a classic. Many people know it. And we left one off the list. I want to take one more.
I was going to say, I
for it.
can think of one we left off the list too.
Yeah, there's a song called The Old Apartment by Bare Naked Ladies that is about him breaking into his old apartment. Basically, the song is I broke into the old apartment. This is where we used to live. And, it talks about why they made all these changes to the apartment and so forth. It's cute.
What about Can't Pay My Automobiles Bills. Destiny's Child.
It's a good
And then
one.
you got No Scrubs by TLC. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of ones about financial hardship and
Oh, well, sure. Yeah.
things like that. But
Finding ones about apartments and apartment hunting is a little bit harder.
You got to give me a little grace.
we're trying. We're fishing out there. Let's talk about the pre-hunt preparation. You're not ready to go out on the hunt yet, but you got to prep. So, Nicole, we're going to use you as an example in this episode. You may or may not be looking for an apartment, trying to decide to be free, go out, find your own place, but not ready yet to put down roots. So when you're looking at the pre-hunt, the preparation part of it, you're going to determine your budget. So calculate your monthly income and follow the 30% rule. So this is to aim to spend no more than 30% of your gross monthly income on rent. So again, remember, gross is going to be that amount that you agreed to for your salary or for your take home. That's before all of, your 401k contributions, for taxes, all of that. We're talking about 30% of your gross, not your net. That's number one on this. And, you've got to also consider when you're determining this budget, yes, what is your 30% gross, but also what is your other debt? What are your spending? What is your savings like right now? Because it's great and all if you go, okay, I've found a place for 30% of my gross income, but I'm up to my eyeballs in debt, or I have $2 to my name, or things like that. So number one, determine your budget.
Well, number two is list your must-haves and your nice-to-haves. Location preferences, apartment size and type, essential features. It's been a minute since I searched for an apartment myself, but all three of my kids have recently gone through apartment searches. And they're all looking for different things depending on what their needs are. So, for instance, you've got one that has a cost differential that's pretty significant. And so they're looking in areas that are more affordable, one that wants something that's nice, but also that has a good neighborhood with lots of stuff to do around them. And then one that was just basically looking for something that she could use for a short period of time and not necessarily have to sign a full year-long lease. And it was just going to be her. So she was looking at studio apartments. So, how long are you going to be there? Where is it? How safe is the area? What's around you that is going to be fun to do? How far is it from your job? Do you have a job? Because you're going to need that to get, to get
I'm
an
about to say,
apartment.
apartments are actually, and this is going to be in this outline, so we're jumping a little bit, but apartments are actually harder to get, it seems like, than actually getting a financial loan for a house. There's a lot of hoops you have to go through. There's a lot of upfront money of putting first month's and last month's rent down. But the other thing that, Court, you didn't talk about was, do you have a pet? Is it an apartment that, allows pets or not? Is there a pet fee? Because with everything, it's like they're going to put a sticker price out there of this is how much this apartment's going to cost. But then you need to start looking at it like what is included in that. So, Nicole, hypothetically, what are some important must-haves for an apartment for you? And then what are your nice-to-haves?
This is going to sound silly, but I want an apartment that has a washer and dryer in unit. I don't want to hook up.
Okay.
And then a lot of them, the one that I'm currently looking at does have one.
Okay.
And that's almost, it seems like the more expensive ones don't. They just have the hookup. So it's like now I got to go rent a washer dryer. I don't want to do that. I'd just go back to my parents if I had to do that. I don't have a pet. Rest in peace to my cat.
Oh.
But I don't know. I want to say the one that I'm looking at, it was like $500 and then $30 every month.
The same one that I just mentioned, the studio, my daughter that's looking at that one is obviously looking for pet friendly. Mm-hmm. And it is the most pet friendly apartment complex I have ever seen in my life. They have like a pet spa on site. And
oh, wow.
Pet washing stations and pet walking paths and
probably a little
parks and stuff like that. I mean, it's crazy.
Is that New York?
I was impressed by that. No, that's Oregon.
Oregon. Okay.
The one that I'm looking at has the same thing though. They have a spa and a little running area but they do have breeds that you can't have.
Oh, gotcha.
So
pets, something to consider. Laundry, we've talked about, obviously, because, some of them have like laundry rooms. And so you're going to have to build that into your time of going down and doing laundry, or you going back to mom and dad's or a friend's house to do laundry. What about parking?
I'd say parking is you want it to be safe, obviously. And I know some places have the built-in garages. That's not necessary for me.
Yeah.
But It is for some other people.
So, for instance, obviously a lot of I don't want to say obviously, but I would assume that a lot of the apartments you're looking at are apartment complexes as opposed to apartment buildings. Like, you're not looking for downtown apartments. Parking is almost assumed out in the suburbs when you're looking at a complex that's basically maybe a 2 or 3 story complex. You're assuming that you're going to have parking. The big question there is it going to be covered parking, or is it going to be just outside? Or there are some places that have like a single car garage to the apartment, and that's pretty cool. But where parking can really be more of an issue is, like, for instance, in a place like Memphis, downtown Memphis, even though you're in downtown Memphis, most people still have cars. So they're looking for places that they can park their cars. Whereas compared to, like, in Manhattan, there are a ton of people in Manhattan that have no cars. So they don't need parking. They don't have to worry about parking. I'm not even sure how many buildings that are apartments have parking. I just know that parking is like real estate up there. It's expensive as heck. So obviously that can be a different issue depending on where you're living and what part of the town you're living in.
I think it's also like, what is this apartment? Is this one that you're temporary? And so you may be appealing apartment that's kind of fully furnished, that has stuff, because if that's more of a temporary housing, testing out an area, that's appealing. But someone who's looking to, hey, I want to move into an apartment and then decide I want to keep saving and eventually put down some roots, they're going to probably bring their own furniture. So there's so many different things to think about, but it's important to have your gotta haves, your like to have, and you're like, absolutely not, this is deal breaker, can't deal with this. And then the parking thing as well, I think a lot of it is thinking about, visitors and making sure owners of apartments have dedicated spots. So it's not like, okay, well, Susie in 4B keeps having all her friends come over and there's no parking spots and I got to lug my groceries halfway across Timbuktu. That's the other thing. Are you a bottom floor, middle floor? Like, is there an elevator? Things like that, because that's a big pain. And I know there's a bunch of people that have different opinions, that they think the upper level is going to be more safety, but then you got to lug all your groceries up 3 flights of stairs.
Having to carry your stuff upstairs, though, in my very limited experience and in talking to other people, being on the top floor is almost key, seems to me, because if you're on the bottom floor, you're going to hear the people above you stomping around. And so you want to be on top if possible so that you're the one that's bugging somebody else.
Yeah. I lived in an apartment in college and the football players were above me.
Oh, no.
And we constantly were having to replace our lights because, it was a cheap on-campus apartments and they would walk and like the lights would just fall and shatter. But okay, that's the thing. So height and like who's above you, who's below you, but also who's next to you, because sometimes apartments are real paper thin. And you're hearing the conversations and what's happening in your neighbors' rooms. And if they're smoking the wacky weed, then you may be smelling that.
Yeah. I do remember that Robin and I, in our very first
We're smoking the wacky weed?
No. No, but we could hear everything that was going on above us. And we could also hear everything that was going on next door to us. Our bedroom backed up to their bedroom, I believe. And so we heard a lot of what was going on in the neighbor's apartment. But it was funny because for the longest time after we moved in, we never saw our upstairs neighbor. We only heard her. I had a nickname for her that was sort of indicative of the fact that she was loud as hell everywhere she walked. And so I just started calling her like Thunder Boom or something like that.
Thunder Boom.
I don't know. Anyway, I remember the first time I saw her, she was like this tiny little thing.
I was about to ask if she was tiny.
Yeah. She was like the size of my youngest daughter, and she was just this teeny little thing. I was like, oh my God, you're the one that's making all that noise over
You're
there?
so loud. Well, so there's things to think about. Okay, check your credit score. We had a whole episode talking about your credit score. Obviously, this is your number that is telling these apartment complexes, your reputation, essentially. That is what your credit score is. It's showing your reputation of, should they allow you to be a renter? Are you going to pay your bills? Are you going to be a good, it doesn't tell you if you're going to be a good person, but it tells you, like, are you financially taking care of your bills? Do you have a credit? Because sometimes when people are doing an apartment, they maybe haven't built up enough credit. They don't have a credit card. They don't have car loans, things like that. So you may have to look at co-signers. And so that's something to consider. So, okay, this was kind of all pre-hunt / already kind of getting into the hunt, honestly. So apartment hunting process, online research. Use reputable websites and apps to find listings, filter searches according to your budget and preferences. That is a good idea. It's, I always think back to like wedding dress shopping, that you want to tell them your budget because you don't want to fall in love with that $15,000 dress. You don't want to fall in love with a $15,000 a month rent. So don't hurt yourself by looking at the ones that are way out of your price range. Now, obviously, sometimes with your must-haves, you sometimes have to compromise. Like, it's okay. I may have to pay a little bit more than what I was wanting to, but am I getting all these other boxes checked off? So have you found success, hypothetical Nicole, of looking for your apartment on websites?
Yeah, kind of. But I do hurt my feelings a lot because I'm like, oh, this one looks nice. And then you see the rent. It's like, oh, never mind.
Not that nice.
Let me go down. And it's like all the places that are too far from here that it's like, maybe I could afford this. But yeah, I do hurt my feelings a lot, but I do it on purpose. Yeah.
Well, and so you should appreciate this part. Being in the marketing branding world, sometimes then they can have a beautiful website, they can have beautiful photos, and they can be really outdated.
Oh, for sure.
Or really like they angle the photo where it makes these rooms look massive. And then you get there and you're like, I can touch all four walls by just putting my hands out.
Yeah, those fisheye lenses will get you every time.
Yeah, so it's good to schedule a time to go see them. And actually, ask the questions. I would say also go and see them. You're going to see their best. They're going to have a model. You're going to see all of that. But before you leave, kind of linger a little bit. Mm-hmm. Kind of see the people around, see, what's going on. Maybe even if you're ballsy, you see a resident, just be like, hey, do you like this place or not? And things like that. And also in today's world, social media, like reviews are out there. Take that with a grain of salt because most people only put stuff when they're upset and angry and try and read through what's somebody just complaining and what's real.
For instance, there's an apartment building in our area that I had to write a letter to because the building was just going to hell in a handbasket, honestly. And so I had to write a letter to management about one of their tenants because, they wanted some relief from some of the nonsense that was going on. And I looked at the website to find the contact information for the apartment. And the website just made it look like this amazing building. But I had heard so many horror stories, not just from our client, but from so many other people that lived there. I mean, it was all over the place. It was all about stuff that wasn't necessarily in the apartment itself. So, you go in, you look at the apartment, the apartment looks great because it was newly refurbished. Well, the problem was the guts of the building were terrible. And so, you do have to do a little bit more research than just check it out and see, oh, this place looks nice. And so, I like the layout. I'll take this room.
Well, when this is over, let me know which one that is so I can avoid it. Okay.
Yep. The good thing is it's like, oh, you're an apartment, so you've got a maintenance person you can call. But then it's also you're at the mercy of these buildings, at the appliances that, they allow, what they allow you to do as far as painting, things like that. So it is limiting on that. Here, the other point on here is when you're looking at the apartment, also go like day and nighttime. Mm-hmm. Make sure you check it out at all different times. I remember when I was getting my apartment in college and my mom and I mapped out where the closest Sonic was from my apartment and did my little loop and stuff like that. And
basically I work with people who are obsessed with Sonic.
Yeah.
I just found that out, right?
Well, when Robin and I originally moved out to Collierville, one of the things that I did was like, okay, do they have a Taco Bell? Do they have a Chick-fil-A? Do they have I checked to make sure that all of
they had your favorites.
The fast food restaurants that we frequented were within a decently short range of our place because we didn't want to have to drive all the way to Timbuktu just to get some crystals,
All right, let's talk financial considerations. So upfront cost, this is obviously going to be the application fee. Maybe there's a security deposit, typically 1 month's rent. And then sometimes they do first and last month's rent up front. So you're talking about a large chunk of money that is coming out at the very beginning. And that's just to get your foot in the door. That's not to furnish it, to turn on cable, to turn on whatever you need to do to actually make sure. Now, most apartments will include like electrical and things like that, but that's why it's important when you visit the apartment, have your list of questions. Ask like, what's included, what are the other things, what can I expect as far as a water bill or electric bill or things like that in addition to this. And, to Court's point, maybe ask the question, when was the last time it was updated? What do I do if there is a conflict? Because if you're obviously lower level and somebody's bathtub runs over, then you could be dealing with an issue because it's coming down to you.
That leads us into the point that I wanted to make. And a lot of, at least Robin and I, when we were kids, certainly never thought of this. I assume that a lot of young people don't, and that's renter's insurance.
Oh, yeah.
There is insurance to cover your stuff if you're in an apartment and your stuff gets damaged because of something that happens in the apartment, or if your stuff gets stolen from your apartment. You have to have renter's insurance to be able to recover those damaged goods or those stolen goods, because it's not like you can go to the apartment complex and say, hey, my stuff was ruined, and they'll just write you a check to pay you back for it.
You got to have the renter's insurance for sure. Hidden costs to worry about, maybe parking fees, pet fees, maintenance and repair fees. Classify what expenses the landlord covers. And also, make sure you understand their hours of operation. You don't think about those things until it's Christmas Eve and your oven goes out, or, your electricity is not working in your apartment. And then it's like, well, who do I call? Is there a 24-hour maintenance person I can call, or who's the representative? And the other thing with apartments is it large corporation owned, where they own multiple properties? Is it, a personal one? Because I know we've got some clients that are landlords that own an apartment complex. And so kind of that plays a little bit into it as well. But yes, 1,000% renter's insurance. Okay, so Nicole has found her dream apartment. She has visited. She has asked all the questions. She feels armed with all the information. She's found out roughly how much she's going to have up front. So you're in the application process. You need to prepare your necessary documents, proof of income, pay stubs, bank statements, identification documents, references maybe from previous landlords or employers.
Yeah, okay. It's important here for me to point out, you mentioned earlier getting a cosigner. And if you ask somebody to cosign with you, if your income doesn't meet the minimum threshold that's set by the landlord to be able to qualify for the apartment, or if your credit score isn't great, or for whatever reason you need a cosigner, then you need to let that cosigner know when you ask them to cosign with you that they're probably going to be asked for their personal information as well. And that can include all the same stuff, proof of income, pay stubs. A lot of times landlords will also ask for a tax return. They'll ask for your most recent 1040 and stuff like that. So, they get all up in your business. And if you're asking somebody to co-sign for you, then they're going to get all up in their business too. So you just need to make sure that they're aware of that.
Well, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But the application process, at least the ones that I've gone through recently, it's considerably easier in some ways than it was when I was looking at apartments, because when I was looking at apartments, everything was paper. You had to have copies of everything and provide them with copies of everything. Now I've got all my information saved on my computer, and if one of my kids says, hey, we want this apartment, I can click a button that uploads my documents and click another button to sign here, and boom, I'm done.
Yeah. But if you're thinking about co-signing for a kid or co-signing for a friend or something like that, just make sure you understand what co-signing means. You are accepting your responsibility as well with this. And so this is going to be, something that personally affects you. So don't just go willy-nilly co-signing for everybody you know. So consider that and make sure it's a good financial move for you in addition to helping this person out.
Okay, so you're approved. Yay! And they say, yeah, we will let you live in this apartment and pay us money for it. Here, sign this. They're going to give you a lease, right? And so you're going to want to carefully review that lease.
See, and I feel like this part about the lease and the terms probably should come up a little bit more so prior to the application, because this could deter you from picking the apartment or not. Because there are some that are like a month to month, and there are some that are, 18 months. Some will do random 13 months, things like that. But I feel like, again, that's going to play into your timetable of how long you're going to be in this apartment.
Yeah, generally speaking, I don't know how many complexes would actually, I've never asked, so maybe they all will. Maybe they're required to, I don't know. Would actually just like let you see a copy of their lease before you ever even applied. They might, but at an absolute minimum, they're probably going to tell you the major terms that you're going to be interested in. And, here's the pet feed, this is the rent, this is what you'll pay for, your share of utilities or whatever. And this will be the total amount you pay. This is how long you're required to stay in the apartment. It's a 12-month lease. This is what is required of you to break the lease. Make sure you find that out. And those are the kinds of terms, the big items that they will tell you before you ever apply. If they'll show you a lease, great. Get somebody to help you review it before you ever even apply. But if they won't, for whatever reason, like I said, I don't know, maybe they have to, then you certainly want to review the lease after you're approved before you sign to make sure that the terms that they told you are actually the terms that are in the lease, and to make sure that there aren't, again, any terms that they may have glossed over. Like, yeah, we've got a pet fee. It's only $50. But then, you have to pay this much per month to use the dog walk or whatever it is. They didn't mention that part. So you've got to make sure that they don't have a clause in there that says that they're not responsible for the walls of your structure or some nonsense like that. Or they have 4 months to repair a broken boiler unit or something like that. Okay, so negotiating. I cannot speak with any authority on this. I have never been a good negotiator. I just am like, I either will say, okay, I'll take it, or I'll walk away. And I have had experiences where I've been like, yeah, no, that's too much. Thanks. I'll go somewhere else. And they're like, wait. But that's only happened to me a couple of times. Most of the time, they just let you walk away. And I just hate, I'm not a haggler. I'm not a bargainer. I'm not in for the thrill of the negotiation. But so I don't know. Will they negotiate with you? Usually I would think that, especially for most of the complexes, when I think of an apartment building or an apartment complex, I would assume that they have pretty set standard rent rates and so forth.
You would think so, yeah. Again, these are all just things to ask. And I think definitely ask the question on, what if you had to break your lease? What would happen then? Like, what is the cost? Because life does happen, and it's better to kind of have an idea of what it was instead of that panic moment where you're like, I have no idea if I can even do it. You at least know, hey, back when I signed my lease 6 months ago, this was what was in place for that.
They may allow you to lock in your rent rate for if you're going to want to stay for 2 years. If you're willing to sign a 2-year lease rather than a 1-year lease, then maybe they let you lock in a lower rent rate. Whereas if you only sign for a year, then they have the option of raising your rent after your year is up. This
isn't like in Sex and the City and Friends where it's like controlled rent and they're having to have these great places and the rent has not changed.
And then obviously plan for the move, which is buy a bunch of pizza and beer and get all your friends to help you move.
Yeah, but you got to think about moving cost. And then you got to think about furnishing it. It's just like buying a house as well. Like, you don't have to do it all at once. You can take time. My house still, I've been in it for almost 5 years, 4.5 years now, I guess. And I still have random, like, family members have given me stuff, things like that. And just over time, I replace things. So don't feel like you have to get this apartment and instantly have a magazine perfect apartment. It's totally fine if your coffee table is a cardboard box for a little bit. It happens.
It's amazing what you can do with a cardboard box and a sheet. A little fabric over that puppy and nobody knows the difference.
Yeah,
except for your back.
Yep. So let's go ahead and kind of wrap this up.
Bullseye this baby.
So my bullseye is obviously, if you look at apartment hunting, then just do your research, take time. Yes, it's exciting, but make sure you do all the checks and balances. And really, while this isn't as big of investment as a house, this still is a big move. And so make sure you're not locking yourself into a place for 12 months that you haven't done all the research on.
Okay, here's my bullseye. And every single person who listens to us who is the parent of a grown child is going to hate me for saying this. But my bullseye is, why are you in such a rush to move out of your parents' house? Your expenses are covered. You got a laundry right there. You might get your meals cooked. It's like Matthew McConaughey in Failure to Launch. He's like 35 years old and he won't move out of home. No, I mean, just be ready for sort of all of these little things that you may not necessarily think of that will come up once you move out. And if you're moving from one situation where you're already on your own to another situation where you're just continuing on your own, then keep in mind all of the little habits that you formed around the place where you're living currently that you will need to change to match the place where you're going to be living in the future. Who has your address? Who will need your address? Are you going to do a change of address announcement? Like that was a big thing. We used to mail them out when we were younger.
Hi, we moved.
But you just have to be mindful of the little things and take your time and make the best choice, and don't be in a big hurry just because it's time.
I wouldn't say I have a bullseye. I'm more of the student, so I'm going to take your advice, both of them, and combine them and go forth.
And enjoy the hunt.
Yes.
And then the kill, and then the success.
Yes, on my cardboard pizza box coffee table.
Hey, look, I will come over and bring you a little housewarming thing.
Aw.
And bring you some pizza and help move. Court will bring the tunes.
You can bring me beer.
He can do that.
Oh, no. There's the closing bell. You've made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your listening device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cameron, Court, Katie, or Nicole, please go to our website. That's bullcastpodcast.com. We've got a place there where you can leave a comment, suggest a topic you'd like to hear us talk about. And we've got some pictures if you like pictures. But if you really like pictures, we've also got an Instagram handle. That handle is @BullCastPodcast. And we have an X handle. That's @BullCastPodcast as well. We have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is BullCast the Podcast. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, as we have mentioned many times, we work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out even more about us, more about what we can do for you, more about our amazing team and our boss, David Pickler, please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O,
not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have given you everything you need to go forth, be merry, rent, and live. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Nicole.
And we're done.